Okay, so there's so much conversation about how Altadena should be rebuilt and who should build it and where the money should come from and how the money should come from. And I think that Catalyst California have found a way, especially to those who live in Altadena, to navigate some stuff. And I think our three ladies tonight will help us learn what the current climate is. It's like everybody thinks, oh, it's like this, it's like that. You got Miss Kenya, you know, walking around and talking to the construction workers. And, you know, we just want to keep learning. Because what we don't want is to look up in 5, 10 years and see something that has no part of us, right? And that's something we just have to fight for. So I'm going to pass it over to Mr. Dobard, and he's going to lead us through. And we are live streaming. Oh, sorry. I'm going to pass it over to you, Katie. And we are live streaming. It's going to pop Facebook, which will then be turned into a YouTube as well. So no cussing, ladies.
They're making promises. Okay. Good evening, everyone. My name is Alicia Mulholland-Graves. I'm Director of Research and Data Analysis at Catalyst California. Catalyst California is a nonprofit here in Los Angeles that works towards racial equity, and we're part of the Dena Rise Up Coalition with Florence and others here. And we're just excited to be here tonight and to present this tool with all of you. So many of you are probably no stranger to the devastation caused by the East fire and the journey that there is to rebuilding. Maybe just by a show of hands, how many people here live in Altadena?
Well,
okay.
Well, past or present?
At least half, not everyone, about half, and I think everyone else is probably nearby. So we really just hope that there's a dashboard that we're going to go through, and then we'll have a panel discussion about some of the local efforts and policy that's going on. We really hope this is just a resource to support the endurance of this community, just to support everything that's going on to help Altadena rebuild. So before I get into the dashboard that I'm showing on my screen right here, I'm going to talk a little bit about a brief that we released on January 7th and on 2026, January 7th. And this brief was released with Dena Rise Up Coalition, and you can find this on our website, catalystcalifornia.org, and we'll make sure folks have the link later. But this data brief that we released included this dashboard that we'll spend most of the time that I'm up here talking about. Our intent in this dashboard was to track how different properties and areas in Altadena were rebuilding in order to identify what are some potential challenges that are coming up in order to provide organizers ongoing data on how recovery efforts are going. So you may know how your neighbors are doing, but like how or what another kind of block or area of Altadena is doing as well. And also just to help advocate for accountability. So how can we hold public officials, insurers, and funders accountable to ensuring an equitable recovery in Altadena so that everyone can return home? So here's the dashboard. We are specifically tracking properties that sustained major or more damage in the fire. So that could be a property that, you know, their entire garage burned down, or it could be a property that the entire home burned down. So that's about a total of nearly 6,000 properties in Altadena that fell into those categories. So what we did is we pulled permit data from LA County for those properties, and we came up with these categories that you see on the left-hand side, just to provide some really brief, hopefully easy to understand numbers about the progress towards rebuilding. So you see the the darkest purple, and then this is as of March 30th that we pulled the permit data. So the darkest purple indicates properties that have had all their permits completed or that have been fully rebuilt. Again, we're tracking more than just the properties where where the entire home has been burnt down. We are also tracking properties where maybe part of it burnt down. So it may not be ground up rebuilt, it may be properties where all of the permits on the property are taken care of as of the date I shared. Then we have a lighter purple, that these are the properties that are in construction. So they have permits, and we see at least one inspection on the property. So this was important. We thought it was one thing to get permits, another thing to try to start construction and to have the funding to continue with the construction as well, right? And then we have this category with permit applications. So how many properties have managed to at least apply for permits in the first place? And then we have without permit applications. So these are properties that a permit has been applied for to start rebuilding. And if I didn't say this, but this is just residential properties. We aren't tracking the commercial properties at this stage. So what we see from these indicators, so 36% of properties have been repaired or rebuilt, so it's less than 1%, and I'm sure that is not surprising to all of you here that live in Altadena and the surrounding areas to see that slow rate. But some are rebuilding, and fortunately we have seen progress. So we released this dashboard originally in January 2026, and so since then we've seen 600 properties move to at least having permits or even moving into construction. So there has been some movement. And if you zoom in on the map, it's kind of hard to see when you're zoomed out. You can see all the light purple to darker purple areas that at least have some permits going or maybe are in construction. And the gray are the ones that have not applied for a permit yet. So unfortunately, we have also seen that there's been a lot of sales on these properties, and I know this is probably also not surprising at all to anyone who lives in the community and has seen the sale signs or know neighbors that have moved. So just for these, about 6,000 properties, 454 have sold since January 2025. We're tracking this data as a combination of assessor data, but also thank you to anyone who's a part of Altadena Not For Sale for collecting the data as well. So this just really goes to show the importance of some of the local efforts that are going on here. I know we're going to hear a little bit about land trusts later on, and just like the need to really support renters and homeowners in the community to try to stay if they want to and have the resources to be able to rebuild. And I'll say that since January, when we first started this dashboard, there's been about 77 sales on these significantly damaged properties between January and now as of March 30th. So I'll show some of the things that you can do with the map. We wanted this to be something that people could use to track recovery in a variety of ways. So we have these filters up here. So you can see, okay, if I want to know the number specifically for West Altadena, you can click West Altadena and the numbers update on the left-hand side. So that's 23 properties repairs. Repairs were rebuilt in West Altadena, 967 in construction. You can zoom out to see how the map is filtered for West Altadena. This is Lake Avenue right here in the middle. I can also say I want to look specifically at multifamily properties, so properties where the assessors recorded 2 or more units, and say I want to see the numbers there. So 65 are in construction, 2 have been repaired or rebuilt, 128 don't have permit applications at all yet in West Altadena. And then I can click back on East Altadena. So I just wanted to show some of the ways that you can filter and use the map. Again, we really want this to be a tool for the community that people can use in organizing, use in advocacy. If you're meeting with elected officials or anyone else and advocating for resources to help in recovery, we want this to be something that is accessible and you're able to use. So next, I'm going to talk about how you can add some additional data on the map, and let me just reset all this so you can see all the properties again. So here are some navigation tools on the right-hand side of the map. If you click on these kind of layered squares, it shows you some additional data layers that you can add. So for example, we have the state and local fire hazard zones. So these are the fire hazard severity zones that the state designated between 2024 and 2025. So not in response to the Eaton fire, these were designated before. And you can obviously see the shortcomings in those, and that they were mainly in the northernmost portions of Altadena, but we know that the fire rampaged through all of Altadena. And this is problematic. If any of you live in these zones, or you have neighbors that live in these zones, of just some of the additional regulations that property owners have to comply with to have like defensible spaces around their properties now to help prevent fire in the future, that anyone in these kind of darker red zones would need to comply with those other regulations. You can see what they are if you click on this button here. This is, and you hover over it, will say the legend. And this will tell you what all the different colors mean on the map. So next I'm going to show that how we have some information on environmental contamination. We've added data from LA County Department of Public Health. They did lead testing in the Altadena area between February and March 2025, so after the fire. They tested some intact homes and some destroyed homes, and they averaged the data in these square grids that you see throughout the map. So they sampled some homes in that grid, averaged it. We'll have some for you later that can correct me of this information I'm sharing. But they produced or published what was the average lead level in each of these square grids. So the darker pink are areas where the lead levels were higher than what would be considered a safe, residential safe, like screening threshold. The lighter pink were below, but there was still evidence of lead contamination. Again, there might be differences within each property in these grids, and these are just the averages. If you see gray squares, those are grids that they did not publish data for, or maybe didn't test. So we, again, not surprising that a lot of areas in Altadena, and specifically downwind of the fire, do have lead contamination, even by the standards that the county showed. And while we're only tracking the significantly damaged properties, I do want to refer to the brief that we have, because obviously environmental contamination is an issue, not just for the destroyed homes, but also for the homes that were left intact, and the commercial properties, for the schools, everywhere in Altadena. So we do have some data or a graph in our brief that shows, out of the homes left intact, what percentage were in high lead areas. So just to help interpret this graph a bit, 84% of multi-family homes that were left intact after the fire are in high lead areas still. And then for single family homes, that percentage was 58%. So 58% of intact homes, single family homes, were in high lead areas based on testing between February and March 2025. So obviously this goes to show some of the importance of the advocacy that's happening right now for more standards around remediation and testing, just making sure that the community is also safe to return to for renters, for homeowners, for people living in multifamily homes or single family homes, and all of that. All right, so I'm going to show just a couple other features of the map, and then we'll have time for one or two questions, but I will be here afterwards too if there are additional questions. So you can zoom in and out on the map as I've been showing you. As you zoom in, you'll see some of the street names as well. You'll see some of the landmarks at Edison Elementary School. It's right here. You can click on a property and it will give you information. We're providing the address, the parcel number. If it was west of East Altadena, was it a single family home or a multi-family home? As of January 2025, What do we project the ownership type is? Was it owner occupied? Was there a renter on the property? Is it owned by corporation? The total square footage of the building, as recorded, the assessor hasn't like removed the square footage of the homes yet for the ones that are no longer on the property, the total units, and then the rebuild status. So is it in construction or another status, and then whether or not it was in a hive by the grid. And I showed you the legend, so if you're unsure what some of the colors mean on the map, you can open that and see that. And then if you can use the layers to turn on or off, I'm gonna turn that off for now. You can also search for a property. So I know one of the first homes that was sold was 95 West Calaveras Street. So you can search for an address or a street and click on it to get more information. So this property was sold as shown by the red hashed out marks on the property, and now it is corporation owned. So now I'd like to pause to see if there are any questions from the community or from the panelists. Again, I have there's time for like 1 or 2 questions. I will be here after the event for more questions, and we'll have some computers set up here so you can also test out the dashboard as well. Yes?
You said the lead level is on, I assume that means soil?
Yeah, soil surface testing.
Okay, it might be good to say that because there's so much lead testing happening in homes and, you know, standing structures, schools and so forth. So it might be good to call that out, that it's soil. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, well, I've been doing a lot of the walking and canvassing in those areas. One of the things that this is going to be very helpful, thank you, to have something like this to interact with. But my understanding is most of the data is just based on the information you're getting from the county based on permits, not necessarily going out there on the ground and verifying that this is actually happening.
Yeah.
One of the things that we are seeing more and more is that there are construction sites that have completely paused. Like it started, and due to lack of funding, there's no workers on those sites anymore, and it's been when I'm having conversations with workers on other sites, it's been a year or months that some of that construction has stopped. So I'll try to start putting some of the input of information that I'm getting as I'm doing the door-to-door. We are seeing more signs of like for sale, unfortunately, also going up in the neighborhood. And one of the things that for me it's very interesting is that when we're talking about remediation, they're usually talking about the areas where the homes are burnt, but when we see the lead testing and the stuff where everybody's impacted, it's not necessarily the burnt areas, and it's community that are currently still living there, breathing this air, playing in that yard, and I think that that's something that maybe we should have conversations of how do we reach out to that community, because they might not see themselves impacted by what happened in Altadena, but every day they're consuming the impacts, and I think that that's something that would be important for us to utilize this information to also show.
Thank you for that. Excited for the panel and some information that we shared around the contamination as well. In terms of the construction and the categories, we are updating the dashboard quarterly. We do also want ideas of like how to improve this. So knowing that like construction started and then stalled in some areas, that maybe there's a way we could track as well how long someone's been in construction, or some of those other nuances that someone started and aren't able to complete as well. The rest of the process. So thank you for sharing that information. I'm glad to hear this would be helpful. If there's anything else that you would need that would help make this even more helpful, we want to receive that feedback too.
A printed map.
We'll have to go by like square grid. You can let us know what blocks you're going out to.
All of it.
Yeah, and I will say this isn't super mobile friendly yet, but we are looking into ways to make it more mobile friendly. And at the end of the night, I'll put up a QR code so you can get the link as well. And so thank you all. Next, I will introduce John Gilbard, Vice President Cal's California, an Altadena resident, and then a member of Dina Rise Up Coalition as we go into the panel for tonight.
Great, thank you, Alicia. I want to invite our panelists up. Thank you. Katie, Nicole. So it's so crucial to know where we are as we organize to figure out where we're going. Again, good evening. I'm John Dobard. We're now going to hear from our panel for this evening. And I'm going to start by having the panelists introduce themselves, say a few introductory remarks. I'll then ask some specific questions, and then we'll open it up to the audience for questions from the audience. So as you're hearing remarks from the panelists, jot down notes or thoughts that may arise or questions you have, and then we'll devote some time so those can get addressed.
Can you repeat your name?
John Dobard, D-O-B-A-R-D. Yes. Okay, so we are going to start with Nicole Boulez.
Oh, thank you.
With Altadena.
I'm just realizing how many cameras are in here. Hey everyone, my name is Nicole Boulez. I am with the Altadena Earthseed Community Land Trust. I come from the architecture and engineering background, so I'm also a part of SoCal NOMA, which some of you may be familiar with in the recovery space. I do believe that building is advocacy. Because the way we build determines who gets to stay, not just in the post-disaster context, but at any given time. And I also believe that those decisions of how we build belong to the community with the folks here. So I'm really grateful to be here with you all.
Thank you, Ms. Boulez. Next, we will hear from Dr. Katie Clark. With
That's very exciting. I like it.
Going out of
Yeah,
with Altadena Tennessee, and then we'll go to.
Amazing. Hi, my name is Katie Clark. I am here wearing two hats tonight. One is my role as a co-founder of the Altadena Tenants Union. I've been a renter and tenant in Altadena the whole time I've lived here. And like many of us, lost my home on January 7th. And have been organizing since then to figure out how we bring tenants and renters who are a meaningful, large, important percentage of the Altadena community into the recovery, how we make sure people have a path back and housing to come back to. So that is why also I am working as one of the founding board members for the Altadena Community Land Trust. We feel like there's a very close synergy between those two groups. As we continue to figure out how to make sure there's a path back for everybody and community ownership of land. So I'm excited to be here.
Excited to have you. Thank you, Dr. Clark. And let's hear from Dr. Nicole McCalla.
Hi everyone, Nicole McCalla, and I'm here on behalf of Eaton Fire Residents United this evening. I really appreciated the dashboard presentation. I think it's really helpful to have data to help make sense of the recovery process. When I think about rebuilding, I also think about returning. And I think we assume that when we say rebuild, that we are going to be returning safely, right? We want to return to a safe, humane, affordable community. And so one of the things that we've been tracking is the environmental hazards, right? And this is a problem that affects all of us, whether we have a standing home or we're rebuilding. What was really striking to me, looking at the map, and I'm almost wondering if this is a layer we want to put on, is that the houses that did not have a little grid around, those are all the surviving structures. These are the places that we're going to be going to our friend's house for dinner. These are the places that our kids are going to school. These are the places where our kids are going to play dates, right? These are our businesses. These are our places of worship. There are so many standing homes in our community or buildings, right? And so we've got this indoor environmental hazards as well as outdoor, right? So we looked at that lead level, and that's like the very, very tip of the iceberg, you know? And so we need to dig a little bit deeper, and there's limitations with the kind of data available, right? Of like, it's very convenient that our county looked at one contaminant, right? And we're good. Like, that would be convenient to stop there. And so I just think about all the spaces that we share as a community, and I want to make sure that when we're welcoming people home, that people are coming home to a place that's not going to make them sick, that this is going to be a safe place to raise our kids and you know, just be in community. So that's what our organization has really been focused on.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us tonight. So we're now going to turn to some questions. I have a few questions, and we're going to start with you, Ms. Willis. So can you start off by defining what a community land trust is? On the map, we saw a lot of land. A lot of it is for sale to and by developers. How is a community land trust different?
Oh, two questions.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. So two
Well,
questions.
first off, to define a community land trust in simple terms, a community land trust is a nonprofit that's governed by a mix of residents and supporters. You'll have those who live on the land, then you'll have those who are within the community. So it could be residents, it could be business owners. And then you also have your supporters, right? Like, they may not be directly within the community, but they're in solidarity with the community land trust. They might be experts like architects or engineers or planners. And the greatest voting body would be your residents who are leasees, all right? So they're leasing land from the nonprofit for a super affordable rate for a super long time. That's the traditional model of the community land trust. What we're finding in the evolution of a community land trust is that it's also an organizing body. So I actually have a quick question that I'd like to pose to the audience, if that's okay. Okay, of the survivors, how many are residents of Altadena previously or now? Okay, so that's about half of the room. And out of you, how many of you want to return it exactly the way it was? Oh, interesting.
Assuming
No
total
hands
loss.
up. I'm sorry?
You're assuming total loss.
Return to the community.
Return the community
Oh,
as it
I'm sorry.
was.
Yes,
Yes, as it was before January 7. Who wants it exactly?
As it was.
As it was. The way you knew it, as it was.
So what it was on January 6th, 2025.
Yeah,
That's the question.
yeah, that's the question.
So how many folks who are Altadena, who are survivors, who are currently or were in Altadena, would like Altadena to go back to exactly what it was on January 6th, 2025?
I wish I felt like that was a possibility.
And how many, if you had the resource, would choose something different in the way that you lived? Like, maybe you would change your housing option, maybe you would change the public realm. Anyone? Like, maybe you were a tenant and you'd like to be an owner. The community land trust can now facilitate that in its evolved state, right? So it's not just the traditional model. It also starts to introduce pathways for folks to live the way that they want to. And so instilling that choice for folks is the priority of the community land trust. Now, you had a second question, which was, how are we different from developers?
Who are buying
So
the
we're
properties.
different in that we are not for profit. Most developers are for profit. If they were looking at the map that Catalyst just demonstrated earlier, they're looking for parcels. They will assess them in a way to find out, how much money can I make out of this, right? Is it a corner lot? Is it a lush lot? What are the utilities like? What's surrounding the lot? Is it a desirable property? And if it is, how much property can I get on here to either lease or to resell at double, triple, quadruple, whatever value, right? The land trust looks at it as a tool for restoration. So we're looking for ways to make folks whole, right? So we are looking at it differently in that we may be looking at the same exact parcel a for-profit developer is looking at, and our intent may be we want to purchase it because it's right next to another property and we don't want that property put together, right? In order to hyper-densify that neighborhood. So we could take it or acquire it and hold it. Or we find lots that maybe families are not in a situation where they can rebuild. And instead of looking to acquire that lot, we would find ways to fund that rebuilding gap, right? Because from a principled standpoint, we believe that if you're a homeowner, you were a homeowner, you are a homeowner, and you want to continue to be, we're not super interested in acquiring the land to lease it out to you, even though that would still favor the community, but it's more important to keep you whole, right? So we go find the money and find those funds and get those funds to you. If it's multifamily, right? We have, some multifamily units that we're looking at. We could look to remediate it. We could look to make it whole, make it safe for folks to return to, and then they have a say in what they want to do with it. Maybe they want to purchase it together and look into shared ownership. Maybe they like the idea of the land trust stewarding that indefinitely, but it still comes down to choice. And same thing for the commercial sector. So that's how we're different from a for-profit developer.
Thank you. Dr. Clark, I have a couple questions for you. So we're a year out from the fire.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest issues that tenants are facing right now?
So we're 457 days from the fire, right? And it's hard to believe that it's been this long and there are still people, still tenants and renters who are not able to go back to their housing, but that is absolutely the case. So we have renters and tenants across Altadena who are really in two big categories. Our standing structure renters, folks whose buildings may have survived. And I'm sure Nicole's gonna talk more about this as well, but are in a really tough position. Unlike a homeowner, as a renter or a tenant, you don't own or control your own housing. You may not be able to handle the remediation. You probably don't have insurance coverage. We know that 91% of folks in Altadena who are in this category are uninsured or underinsured. So we have a lot of people who are either still displaced from their housing because it hasn't been remediated, or they're living in what they know are unsafe conditions, but they don't have a plan B. That's the only option. We had in Altadena a very large, comparatively speaking, very large proportion of naturally occurring affordable housing. Housing that for various reasons, because of our local economic circumstances, had escaped some of the price inflation that we see across other parts of the county. Almost all of that is gone. So it has either been destroyed, or when those tenants eventually do give up and leave because they can't hang on anymore, they can't wait for a safe property to come back to, the landlord can flip that unit to market rate housing. And so we see a slow rolling sequence of landlord motivated, basically evictions, right? These are like soft evictions. People aren't being evicted with a notice on their door. They're being evicted because someone's telling them, well, it might be another 6 months, it's just tough to say. It'd really be better if you just left. And at a certain point, people have to do that. So we're seeing ongoing displacement for our standing structure tenants. And of course, for everybody who is a total loss tenant, which is a majority of renters and tenants in Altadena, we have no idea how or if we're gonna come back, right? There is no housing. When your house burns down, your lease ends, right? That's the end for you. So there is no legal tie, there is no legal obligation. Even if a landlord rebuilds that building, you have no right to come back to it. So it is a really difficult situation. You are also now in the midst of an incredibly expensive housing market in the greater LA area. People's costs are rising. And many, many people are really struggling to even stabilize, much less begin recovering. And I'm sorry to be like a real black rain cloud about this, but I think that the situation for renters and tenants is dire. It is very bad. Things are not going well. And we're not special in that way, right? It is worth knowing that in every major federal disaster that we've had that is on the scale of ours, for every dollar of recovery money that goes to homeowners, 22 cents goes to renters and tenants. So there is not, and that's in a good situation where you have federal recovery money, which we don't. So already we're at a disadvantage. People are coming into this disaster with fewer economic resources, with fewer choices, and 457 days later, they have very few indeed.
Can you tell us how the county is responding, particularly to Altadena Tenant Union's demands from last year around clear habitability standards, a pause on evictions, rent increases, and a plan to house tenants still living in temporary housing?
I was told we were not allowed to swear at the so I'm gonna have to really be careful. I'm gonna have to choose my words very carefully. Look, the county has not stepped up, right? I don't think the county has stepped up for homeowners, honestly, but they have certainly not stepped up for renters and tenants.
Why would they?
Why would they? It's a
Why
great
would they?
question. I think that there are a lot of like political and economic moving pieces, but the bottom line for renters and tenants is that the county views our population as a disposable one. And if all of us give up and go away, that'd be just fine. Ultimately, it is not a high priority for them. In the days and weeks following the fire, the Altadena Tenants Union put together a series of requests, which are still the requests that we are facing today, right? What are the standards for remediation and habitability? Where are people supposed to go? Like, if your house burned down and you can't afford to rent something, what are you supposed to do? And the answer from the county has been like, well, that really seems like a you problem. And they have done most of this through inaction, right? Through delay, through avoidance, by saying, well, oh, that's so terrible. Somebody should really do something about that, but it can't possibly be us. Well, who is it supposed to be, right? So whether it's the Department of Public Health, whether it's the Department of Consumer and Business Affairs, whether it's the 5th Supervisorial District, I think that the county has really abdicated its responsibility to the renters and tenants of Altadena, and they should be ashamed.
Absolutely. Thank you. Dr. McCalla, so there's this bill, Assembly Bill 1642, that Eaton Fire Residents United is sponsoring and that Dena Rise Up is supporting. It would establish statewide regulations for the investigation, testing, removal of lead and asbestos from structures.
Yep.
Can you tell us what's the status of that bill?
Sure, it's still alive, so this is good. It made it through its first assembly hearing. So yay, it's in its little bill tracker. So it's chugging along. It's right now with appropriations, and so that's our next big hurdle. What is it?
May 14th.
Oh yes, okay, May 14th. I was like, am I wrong? Is the bill tracker in my head now? Okay, yeah, so like you said, this would establish requirements for testing standing structures. That would include homes, schools, businesses. What we really need is some clear guidance. As Katie was mentioning, the county didn't step up, our public health department did not step up. We did have a little win last year with SB 610, which in theory was supposed to protect renters and demand that landlords remediate properties and return them to their pre-fire conditions. Unfortunately, that bill did not specify what we need to test, right? And so the fire that we experienced here in Altadena, as well as the Palisades, these were urban conflagrations, right? These were urban fires. They started as wildfires, but it really is it really mischaracterizes the fires to call them wildfires, right? There was really nothing wild about it. It was very much a man-made disaster, right? And so there are a lot of contaminants in homes when you burn plastic and building materials and cars and batteries and all of these things. You know, that was distributed in our soils. It was distributed into our homes with 100-mile-an-hour winds. And so science tells us what contaminants are out there, right? We know from the data we've collected that 100% of homes test positive for lead, right? That's really like a staggering statistic. 100% test positive for lead. Over half are testing positive for asbestos, right? So we have a problem, and right now the county, and without like strict guidance on what to test for, a lot of folks just want to come in and either do, you know, a site kind of test, sniff and look around. If it looks good, it is good. Or they want to just test for a little bit of combustion byproducts, right? And that's just the ash. That is actually the visible stuff that we can see. And that's not enough for renters, right? And so we really haven't made progress in the past 457 days. Was that what you said? We are still waiting for some guidance. And because, you know, we really fought for months and months in spaces to get local, state, federal support, and it just wasn't happening. So we had to go straight to let's have some legislation that hopefully protects current fire survivors, but the future, right? So this bill, as AB 1642, would actually require the clearance of contaminants in our soils and in our homes, in our standing structures, right? This clearance before occupancy idea that Eaton Fire Residents United is behind. The idea is that we don't want new cancer rates. Coming back to this community should not mean that we have a disproportionately higher rate of cancer than anywhere else, right? That's all we're asking for. Remove it to the level that we are not going to have disproportionate rates of cancer. And that doesn't seem like a crazy ask, you know? And so, you know, track us. Eaton Fire Residents United, our website, has a bill tracker. It's got a lot of information. It also has information about AB 1795, which is the bill that is from the California Department of Insurance. That is kind of like a counter bill that would basically codify a lot of what SB 610 did, and, you know, in spirit try to do something, but in actuality make things worse for everybody. Because if we don't specify what we need to test for, and we don't specify you've got to get rid of these contaminants, we're really not putting protections in place. And so that's a little bit about what we're doing. Happy to answer more questions along the way.
Well, you mentioned the county, and I have a county question for you.
Okay.
We know the county's tested for lead.
Yep.
But there are many more contaminants, right?
Yep.
20 contaminants.
Yeah.
What's the conversation about this, going beyond just testing for lead?
The conversation doesn't look good. It's a very frustrating conversation. What can I say about this? I mean, there are scientists all over, right? Like UCLA recently had the LA Fires Research Conference. And there are hundreds of researchers that have been collecting data related to the Palisades and Eaton fires. Hundreds. They've looked at our air, our soil, our dust, our surfaces. Like they've looked at our waterways. Like they've looked at, in every study, there is a pattern. There is something here, right? There is something to be concerned about, environmental hazards. And unfortunately, the county and public health does not want to take this on. They just don't. And California Department of Public Health, LA County, Pasadena, I understand some of their perspective. They're limited with resources. They don't have wildland-urban interface fire experts on their staff, right? They are not equipped really to respond to this kind of disaster. And their mission is really to address imminent threats, is what's been explained to me. So, like if a building is about to collapse, that would be an imminent threat. But cancer, that takes 3, 5, 10, 20 years to manifest, is not an imminent threat. And so there's a huge disconnect in what right now we should be concerned about. And I was naive going into this thinking, well, if we bring them the data, then, that we'll be like, here, and take it over. And unfortunately, that hasn't happened. And so it is academics that are looking for funding. It is community-based organizations. It's folks like Catalyst California that are helping leverage the data that's out there. And the challenge is that, as you mentioned, there's so much more to be tracking. And, lead is the tip of the iceberg. So we've got to figure out, how do we look at chromium? How do we look at, arsenic? I mean, in these arguments around, some of these things likely existed before in your homes. I just don't buy it to the level that it's being peddled and sold. I do not believe that I had, extreme levels of arsenic on my countertops the week before over the holiday season. Like when I had a party going on, I didn't, think I was serving up chromium to folks. But that's what we're being told, that this stuff was in your home. It's, sure, it might be in some paint chips, there might be some lead, sure, there could be some asbestos somewhere, but it wasn't, in the air floating around. It wasn't, right? Asbestos stays airborne for 72 hours, right? So it wasn't in the air. It wasn't on our surfaces, unless none of us ever cleaned our homes, which, I know that wasn't the case in Altadena. So, the help is not coming from the county. And so hopefully we can force the hand with some state legislation.
Yep, so yet another area where the county needs to step up, and also another reason why organizing is important.
Yeah.
All right, we're now going to turn it to the audience, and if you have a question, please raise your hand and we'll work to get that question answered. Also, if you have a thought that you just feel like you want to share, please feel free to share that too.
I have a thought. I won't take the position that the authorities are taking the position to just lend excuse because they do not have the resources to address the issues of the contaminants in the environment. But then also I'm very realistic. There was existence of these contaminants before, but the fire ignited it and exacerbated it. So from my vantage point, I must be realistic as well as practical about that, and then still take the position that you're taking to push to make sure that residents are returning to a safe environment.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. I mean,
Yeah.
we have laws that say how much lead or arsenic is allowed to be in soil, that you can plant a garden and eat your food from that garden. We have laws that tell us how much asbestos is allowed in schools. And so when we're dealing with cases where time and time again the data is coming back that the levels of these contaminants in our properties exceed those thresholds, sometimes by 6,000%, I mean, we have a problem. And let's say it was here. Let's say, this stuff was here. Okay, first of all, we would have had to see disproportionate rates of cancer in our community. We would have had strange clusters of issues in our community, and that's not the case. So I think we can rule out the fact, this idea that maybe we had this level of exceedance, right, prior, because we just don't have data to support that. And so and even if it were, the fact that, and we didn't know about it, and just magically we were all just surviving just fine and we're immune to it, because we're Dina Strong. The fact is now we know it's here, and we're dealing with contaminants thousands of times over the limits that we're told are safe. And so we want to come home safely. We want to work here safely. We want to, we want to be in community here safely, and the only way that's going to happen is if we address our environmental hazards. That's that longer term sort of vision.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 1642 is like a key intervention. Could you all share like what is something that is working to bring people back safely? I know it's not because of the 0.6. If there is not, what are key interventions to bring tenants back safely, and tenants including homeowners and renters?
Yeah, I mean, I can start, and I'm sure all of us have ideas on this. You know, I think that there are two key things that need to happen in order for especially renters and tenants to be able to come back safely to Altadena. One is stabilization, right? So what we know, again, is that renters and tenants on average, and there's very good data out of UCLA on this, and I encourage you to check it out. If you haven't seen it, we'll make sure we share a link to that. But we know that, you know, the average income for tenant households pre-fire is substantially lower than that of homeowners. We know that people are taking on consumer debt. We know that they are taking on other forms of debt. We know that the recovery vehicles that are available are largely aimed at homeowners. And so although there may have been, you know, sort of one-time cash infusions early in the aftermath of the fire, mostly there is not material assistance available for renters and tenants. We also know that many of the requirements are hitting our longest tenured residents the hardest. So if you think about it, you know, the longer you've been in Altadena, the longer you've lived here, the lower your rent was likely to be pre-fire, right? Like I know folks who've been here forever and ever paying $500, $600 a month. There is no $500, $600 a month rent in LA County. You can't even rent a room for that, right? Like that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
So first of all, you know, the higher the lower your rent was pre-fire probably correlates with how long you had been in the community. We know that renters and tenants in Altadena are not a transient population. Our renter population on average lives here north of 9 years plus. And that's on average, right? So most of our folks come to Altadena and they stay here. And so the question is, how do we stabilize people in the meantime? That looks like giving them money, giving them cash, because people need money to pay for increased housing costs, increased transportation costs, increased childcare costs. Like none of that is easy to navigate. So step one is just stabilization, making sure people have a baseline, because you can't even make a determination about whether or not you want to come back, if there's something to come back to, if you're worried about where you're going to move the 18th time, you know. And we know for sure that today we have people living in their cars, moving time after time after time, living in really unstable conditions, hoping that they're going to have someplace next month, and that you can't even begin to recover if you are just trying to make sure you make it to next month. So step one is stabilization. Step two, and I know there are a lot of really smart, good people working on this, is rebuilding permanently affordable housing in Altadena so that there is something for folks to come back to. And we all know that the market is not incentivized to do that, right? If it were, we would not have the housing crisis in LA that we have. So this is a big challenge, right? It's hard to do this. This is a big, big problem to solve. But I do think we have a unique opportunity to solve it. And I think that we have a very committed group of folks who are working in this community to try to do that. So that is the sort of short-term, long-term set of solutions, but there are many, many more things that need to happen, certainly, to stabilize that population.
I'm not from Altadena. I just started working here organizing. But one of my questions is, how has Barger gone so unscathed from everything? Because I understand you guys are having this conversation here, but being in East LA, Boyle Heights, like her name doesn't come up when we're talking about fires. The person that's getting all the heat is our mayor, Karen Bass, and this woman just keeps going through her political life as if nothing has happened and has no accountability whatsoever to what's happening in Altadena or even in her district. So I'm just wondering, is there like a plan or a strategy to actually put her as a target, because she is your direct person that should be accountable to tenants, to homeowners. She's the boss of the health department, the business affairs. There's legislation that it's not being implemented, and it's her job to implement it. So I'm just wondering, how can we support to make her the target that she needs to be and accountable to this community? Because I know that everywhere where Bass goes, she gets the heat for the fires. And people think Eaton Fires is her responsibility, where we know it's not even within the city of LA. But like, how do we support in that? Coming from also the outside, like, how does our communities come out and support in that sense as well?
I think big picture, and Katie was mentioning this earlier, this is like a broken system. If everybody says, okay, well, it's really important, thank you for bringing it to my attention, but you should go talk to them, or you should go talk to them, right? It's like this passing the buck.
Right.
And I'm not sure where the accountability is in this system. Barger's out after this term, so there's no teeth that we've found in being able to move the needle. We have been able to meet with several people from her office, and I think there's, a few good things that are happening, like, earmarking $1 million for soil remediation, but where is it? Right? Where is it, LA County? Where is it, state of California? There was $2 million set aside from the state of California, $1 million from Barger to match it. We are still waiting. Not a penny of that has reached our communities. And that was announced, that was a 2025 decision. It was announced like at least 6-8 months ago, and there's not a penny that's been released. And so the earlier question about how do we get back, we need resources to get back, right? We need resources. Insurance does not care about your soil. If we step outside, one of the most beautiful things about Altadena is we had a lot of soil. Like, we had a lot of beauty. And so how do we step outside safely? Like, that's gonna require a system level approach, a community-wide approach. It's not just my property, and I don't care what happens beyond that property line. This is our community, and we need resources. We need the resources that have already been named to be freed up, because when you don't spend the resources that have been earmarked, they go, oh, I guess you didn't need them. So how do you even get more if you haven't spent the ones we already gave you? And when the next disaster comes and the attention gets diverted and there's a whole bunch of unspent funds, how are we even asking for more? Right? So how do we get the levers to actually expend the money that's already been earmarked? Like, please, if you know the answer to that, love to hear it.
As I sit here and think about statement, question, the first thing that comes to mind is there's no blueprints, but there's community. And there's a lot of people in this audience that are part of a coalition called Dina Rise Up that is actively working to hold the electeds accountable, because we can't do it on our own. And unfortunately, the system is broken, and it is slow, and it may be another year. It may be longer than that, right, on the policy level. But we do have each other. We do have brilliant people working on the ground, resourcing, bootstrapping, sharing knowledge in order to do some of these things on our own. The contamination issue, like my children attend school in Altadena, and my resort has been, I get them tested at the pediatrician's office every couple of months to monitor it on my own. And unfortunately, I think, well, I don't even know if it's unfortunate, because now we found each other, right? And in the meantime, while we're holding the electeds accountable, we're working with each other, We're empowered by a data dashboard with data that we gather first before it even gets to the county, before it even gets to these institutions. This is a tool that we just reviewed that are in our hands. And we can continue to improve that and elevate that and work together. I mean, even in the rebuild, Ms. Anna, I'm gonna put you on the spot. She found her way. She shipped historical homes from Lincoln Park a few days ago. She's starting, and that's community knowledge. She had enough information, and then she found some of us who had a little bit more information, and then she found some other folks, and we came together and helped make it happen. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, I was just about to say that. It's like we want the needle to move legislatively, right? And for those people in power and have greater access to resources. I like the word money better.
Say it, just say it. Just
Right.
say it, just call it out.
Yeah, I like the word money better. I'm not a lover of money, but I think when we say money, it's very direct, right? And so I'm thinking that resourcefully, we have to come together and reach other community human beings like us that are on the ground, that are outside of our community, and start asking them to help our community because our officials are not being accountable. And yes, a lot of that money has come from them, but then now they need to understand that we, the community, are not getting the money. Right? It's like I gave $1,000 or $2,000 or $10,000 to the Red Cross or to the WHO or that or whatever, but they don't know that their money is not going where it should be going, and that's to the people who need it, not to the people who are administrating it.
I think we have time for one or two more questions or thoughts if anyone wants to ask. Yes.
For me, the elephant in the room is the journey of rebuilding, and when you talk about remediation, but I also see so many men, and predominantly immigrant men, who are working that land and who are building in this soil.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So firsthand,
Yes.
in 5 years or 10 years or whenever you're saying, they will also start to have whatever, the cancer, the this, the that. But who's going to go for them? Because there's this gap. There's the people that are building the houses and the people that are going to live in it. And that whole stream has to be made accountable. And so I'm very much with Kenya that I haven't really seen the county and when not so much as budget, but I haven't seen the county do what they're supposed to do. The left hand don't know what the right hand is doing. And they're mad at each other and they're mad at the people. But because she's leading, at the end of the day, she's the head. And if she told them to click, they'd all click. Like that. They would all jump up and say, okay, what do I have to do? Where's that money? Where's that million? Where is it? But because there's no fire underneath them, you almost have to go into this space of, well, is this a plan? Because how is it she's not taking any responsibility? Like, is this a plan for Altadena that we just don't know about? You know, and it is like a mind F-U-C-K. All along this journey, if I listen to organizers, I'm like, and it's great you've got legislators who want to do the work, Caribbeans Sasha who want to do the work, but her experience, she is so experienced. This is a Republican who Altadena has been voting in for years, and yes, she's leaving, but the thing is we haven't figured out, or some people would say where she's jumping to, right? And this is also the window of finding out who's coming up for her spot. And who wants that spot. Because who wants that spot, don't forget, it's going to be more divided now. So it's not 5 supervisors, it's going to be like 9. That's a whole different game plan of how you attack, because that means 4 other seats, 4 people who are looking for your vote.
Yep.
And I think we just have to think forward. Like I still don't know where she's going, but my moral compass starts with the people that are building. Because if we care about the people that are building, as much as we want to care about the people that are going to get in their home. Because if the builders are safe, your home will be even safer. So, and do you want lawsuits? Class action lawsuits is going to come down the pipe from those workers, and they so deserve it.
Absolutely.
Because they were working in soil that just, you know, wasn't right. And so I really want us to think about that on the level of everybody's going to be affected. Absolutely everybody, and I do think that even though she's leaving, there has to be a way for her even to say why. Like why every single office is there no accountability, and you're the leader. And you're comfortable to fall asleep at night and have a nice photo op.
So thank you so much for bringing up the issue and importance of worker protections. This is so front and center to the work that Eaton Fire Residents United is doing, and I think when we talk about ways to move the needle, there are actually some protection for workers in this country, right? There's workers' right to know. There are some legal protections that we're trying to figure out how to pull those levers. We have multiple grant applications in right now, trying to get funding to start some communication campaigns. So like some of the things that are, the ideas that are coming up, so much of it for me is like, how are we gonna source the information campaigns, right? How do we reach out to these other communities? How do we get the word out to worker protections? Like I have so many ideas that are easy implementable ideas that could immediately start helping and protecting workers. You know, there's so much more we can do. And so I think for folks that are watching maybe that are not already in this, you know, there are a lot of ways to volunteer or be a supporter for the cause. If you have an idea around communication, content creation, I mean, all of these things take some time and a product that we can then use and go door to door. A product that we can put on our social media, right? I will say that the LA County Department of Public Health's Worker Health and Safety Division is a brand new division, and they want to help us. They really do. They are the ones that got the signs put up around Altadena. They're the ones that literally, the few things that we have gotten came from their division, the Worker Health and Safety Division. So it is one area where I think all the bright minds in the room and that are watching, how do we pull some of the levers that are related to worker health and safety to move the needle, because, you know, protecting children wasn't important enough. So maybe we can look over here and figure out how to leverage that, right? So 100% agree.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we have to start wrapping things up here due to time. I thank you all for your questions and the thoughts that you shared tonight.
please join me in thanking our panelists. And invite Florence to come back up to close us out. You can stay there. You can absolutely stay there.
I need y'all to take some food. And thank you for being, I think somebody said 500 and something days. You know, when it first happened, you know, this shows you the level of drainness. Because when it first happened, every room was full. Everything was everywhere. And I think we as organizers just have to get through this bump, so to speak, of people feeling weary, people feeling hopeless, people feeling I'm not going to rebuild, people feeling like I've lost, I can't go back to my home, you know. There's a lot of that coming down the pipe, and if we can just get through it and galvanize people, I think we can shake some stuff up, but we just got to get through this, because that's all I did. Like, oh, I'm not building, the gap is too much, or people have stopped working until the insurance comes through. I think there's a list after list of blockage, which is unfair for Altadena, right? It's totally unfair, and people that have lived there 30, 40, 50 years, generations, and they're moving to Texas, they're moving to Arkansas, they're like, I'm done, it's a wrap, you know? So I just hope for us to stay encouraged, but stay in touch, and collaborate more, whatever side, whatever door you walk into, because I think somewhere on the journey we're going to need each other. And before I forget, Matthew, can you please tell me so I don't forget the meeting that you said on the video?
Yeah. So Vlad and EFC Policy Committee has been working really hard with Senator Sasha Renee Perez on a right to return bill, and it's being redirected at the state. So right now at the county, there is a policy moving forward for a local preference policy that would make sure that any affordable housing or rehousing resources that come online would target those from the community first, with an emphasis on those who've been displaced. And so that policy is going through the cluster system right now. There's a meeting next Thursday from 2 to 4. We're happy to send out the information about that. You don't have to be there in person, you can be virtual, but this would be a very good space for us to continue the right of return going on, right? I was there with a couple folks a few weeks ago to provide support, but really this is like when we were talking about Captain Barker being absent, it's because they're not in her house. We need to be up in her face. Like after that question, I was like, all right, so when are we gonna take her office? When are we just gonna have library? So like if we're in her space, in the county space, we can get what we want. So next Thursday, 2 to 4 online, I'll send the details out. I got you.
But thank you so much. And,
I'll make sure that you get it. Did you check it? I'll make sure you get it.
yeah, so thank you so much for coming. And,
Thank
you.
Folks are welcome to stick around. We have a couple of laptops. If you'd like to explore the dashboard further, we'll stick around and you can explore it on the laptops. Thank you.